Alright, Wayne Barron here from CFFCS.com's Coding Source. This is lesson number 2 of the ASP Classic lessons. And to start off with, I want to jump back into our default page because I forgot something whenever we copied and pasted our form fields in lesson number 1. And that was our tab index. Our tab index needs to jump from basically whenever you hit your tab key, you want to tab between your fields, and it usually goes in order. Well, as you can see, I've got tab index 11111, and so that needs to be changed to 2, 3, 4, and 5, and we want the one for our submit button, which is 6. So now, this right here makes it so that we can actually use a tab key now instead of whatever the heck that was getting ready to attempt to do if we wouldn't have changed this. So now what we want to do here is that we are going to before we create our database, hang on for a second. Let's go ahead and create our database. So let's go ahead and jump into that. We're going to create our access database first. And our access database that we're going to be creating is, let's go ahead and save. This is using Office 2010. You can use any version of Access that you have in order to do this tutorial. And so let's go ahead and save. Oops, that's actually hang on for 1 second. Let's see here. Let's close that database, and let's try this one more time. Go into our folder, and we actually need to save it somewhere. So as soon as this loads, computer is really bogging down, really running slow at the midway or a little bit past midway of the first video. There's actually a slight sluggishness of the audio and the video, so there's a lag in it, and so I despise that whenever it gets a lag in it. Didn't mean for it to happen. It's just that my computer's deciding that it wants to be a little bit too blasted slow for what I want to do it with. So let's go ahead and we want to put our database inside of a folder called data. Okay, and now we're going to change this so that it works for everybody's, which is 2000 above. And we want this to be named, I think I've got it named as lessons. So let's click OK. And now let's create it. Okay. So, the first thing we want to do is we want to save our user table, change it to design view. We want UID, which is the auto number. This is our user ID, and then we've got our first name text, first name, last name text, last name, and username text, username, and password text, and password. Now we want to change each, also email. So each one of these wants to be changed to 25 apiece. If you need more characters, then just change it to whatever as many characters as you need. Put your email address about 50. That's about right. And so we'll make sure that everything's spelled right. So save that. And this is our users table, and so we're going to also create another table. And so we go here, we create another table, and then we save that table as profile. Right click, go to design view, PID, leave it as auto number, profile ID, UID, and this is a number, and this is our users ID. And then we've got our pro picture, text, leave it at 2, let's change that to memo. And then this is our, change that to text, leave it at 255 profile image, and this is our pro about, change that to a memo. This is about the user. So on our pro about, we want to give it a default value of information here. At least I think that's the way I've got it done. So anyway, what that does is actually inserts a value into the table whenever it's first created. And so that, because whenever we run our script to reverse our protection of our SQL and XSS injections, if we don't have a value inside of our pro table yet, then it is going to give us an error. So this right here makes it to where there will always be data inside of this area so that we don't have to worry about any type of errors. So now with that created, what we want to do now is that we want to get our SQL Server, and we want to do the same thing with our SQL Server. So let's, this is SQL Server 2005. Okay, right click, okay. On database, we want to create a new database. And lessons, go over here to options. Change our recovery model from full to simple. If you leave it at full and you're running this on your own server, and then all of a sudden you get errors popping up that let you know that you're running out of disk space. And then you check it out and you find out that your log file for your database is 7 or 8 gigs. I mean, it will dump it. Even though you've only got 3 or 4 records, it will create a huge daggone log file. So if you have it on simple, then it creates small log files, and that's what we want. We want a small log file. I'm not the most knowledgeable at SQL Server, so you might want to do some research to find out which one will better suit your project, whether you want a full recovery model, a bulk log recovery model, or simple. For my in-house, which is my testing server, my development server, which is a Windows 2003 server, I run a simple model. That way I don't have to worry about running out of disk space whenever there's nobody accessing it anyway. So let's go ahead and click on OK. All right, create our table. Okay, now let's go down, let's open up our lessons. Computer's really being slow. New table. Excuse me. Alright, user ID, this is an integer, and we want to allow nulls, not allow nulls, that is. Go down here to identity specifications, scroll down, choose yes, and this is users. Then we go first name, and this is bar character 25. Change that to an, okay. L name 25, and email 50. Username and password. Okay. Now, since each one of these columns are going to obtain data whenever it's first created, we're going to allow nulls as, no, we don't want to allow nulls. We want each field to actually retain data. And so that was for that one. So then we click on here and new table. And then we go to, PID, and go down here. For every table that you create, and you're gonna have a an ID type of number, you want to make sure that it's set to identity as yes. Also, set as primary, save. lessons set as primary. Now, UID, integer, and that, and pro image 255. Actually, we're going to change this to 355, and then our pro about is going to be max. And then we go down here, same thing as before, information here. Okay, now save it. Okay, now let's go ahead and minimize that one. And that one's already set up with a key, so is that one. That's one cool thing about Access, is it already sets your primary key for you. I wish SQL Server would do it. There's probably a way to make it do it. Unfortunately, I haven't figured that out yet. So we've created our tables, our databases. So now what we want to do is let's go ahead and Control N to open up a new file. It doesn't matter what data type it is or doc type it is. We're going to do the same thing as we did before, and then we're going to save this one, and it is going to be saved here as ACN. That's just what I name them all. So alrighty, now what we want to do here is with our ACN, this is going to be our database connection file. So what we're going to do here is we're going to have all of our database and our SQL and XSS injection scripts inside of this file. This file will be put at the top of our paths, and we're also going to be creating a header file which is going to go on the top of our default.asp page. So let's go ahead and let's create our set obj con create object. Okay, now you can add the server to this as well. It's not really, you don't really have to use it no more, because all of your newer servers, I think from 2000 and above, you no longer need to have server.create object. It is already implemented within IIS to do it, or within the server to do it, so you don't really need it. But anyway, we'll just leave it in yonder. And so let's go to obj con, let's change that to a lowercase, and dot. Okay, let's make sure that everything, that's what I thought, that needs to be taken away. Okay, and the original database, whoops, that's not ASP, sorry about that, that's MDB. The original database was actually called exercise.mdb. So anyway, since we've already got it named lessons, we're going to leave it at lessons. So this is for our access database, which is stored inside of our data folder. It should pop up a hint, but I'm not going to pop up a hint. Go to all files, lessons.mdb. So now we're going to create our, we can just copy this part and that part, and then we have this part. So let's go here. A lot of copy and pasting, always a good thing. So now we got provider equals SQL OLEDB. Oops, that's lessons. Okay. Considering the fact that I do not really want to show my username and my password for my database, I'm going to leave this blank for right now. However, that is basically how it goes. Provide your username right here, username, and your password will be right there. So, depending on which database that you want to use, right now we're going to use our Access database. So we're going to add the single quotes here to comment out our SQL Server Database connection. And so I'm going to also add in our Protect SQL and our Reverse SQL. These are very long scripts that I really don't feel like typing out, so I'm going to go grab a hold of them and add them in here, and then I will be right back. Okay, I am back, and this is our protection script. Okay, this will protect all of our SQL entries. So if anybody tries, well, this is our SQL and our XSS injection script. If anybody tries to put in any type of script tags, it's going to automatically convert them over to their computer programming tag names. Okay, this right here is our, let's take this and drop it down below here. Okay, what this does is it makes it to where whenever you're typing in and you create a line space and then a double line space or so forth, and like you type in a comment and then you jump down 2 spaces, this is going to change that white space into a break. Okay, and then it's going to insert it into the database. And the reason why we're going to put it down here is that if we was to have it up here, then it's going to take this and it's going to change that line into them numbers. And I always leave it up here, and which this script right here reverses everything. And as you can see, this is below it. So we want to process these first and then process that, because if we process this first, if this goes to the top, then it'll process our break, then the rest of this will break it all up. And so we add that back down yonder and put it where it needs to be at. So anyway, the next thing that we want to do is that we, since we've got this, so we want to jump back into our past. We really don't need this open anymore, so I'm going to go ahead and close it out. Just remember, Protect SQL and Reverse SQL. And so that is our function names. And we went ahead and just kept the SQL string the same. It didn't really need to be changed because, as you can see here, the Reverse SQL function name is the only thing that needs to be changed. So let's go ahead and close that out. So now what we want to do is go up here and we want to connect to our acn.asp file. And then now we can use our database connection, which is a obgconn. And okay, the lesson number 1 is processing at 99%, so it should be ready for y'all in just a moment. And I'll go ahead and jump over yonder in just a minute and add it to the intro video so that everybody can go ahead and jump in and start learning that one. So, but now we can use our database connection along with our SQL protection and SQL reverse inside of here, because we will be using both of them inside of a processing page. We will only be using the reverse inside of here, but we'll get to that in just a minute. So first thing we want to do, actually in another lesson, first thing that we want to do here is that we want to go ahead and connect our or create our select statement. So what we want to do is that we want to check to make sure that the email address being submitted and the username being submitted does not already exist in our database. If it already exists in our database, then we want to let them know, hey, this exists, you might want to go ahead and change. So it's a lot of code to type out, and I do enough typing as it is, so I went ahead and I've got it right here for me. And so let's go ahead and jump in here. It's going to be up underneath our register. So we want to add it in about right up in here. And let's do this. So now what we want to do is that we want to check our users table for the email address and the username. We don't want to worry about the rest of it, just the email and the username. So select email username from users where username or email. Okay, we're using parameters. Okay, parameters helps in the SQL injections. It doesn't help in the XSS injections, but it does help in the SQL injections. So using parameters is a very good way to help yourself not to get into any trouble. And also, one other thing that needs to be added into our ACN file. Let's open it back up. We need to go right up to the top here, and we need to add in our found include file. We're going to add in our data adobbs.inc. adobbs. Yep, okay. Now this file right here, let's go ahead and let's save. Let's open it up. Okay, it's inside of our data folder. No, it's not. It's supposed to be. It's inside of our utilities folder. No, it's not. Oops, I've deleted it. I need to go find it. So let's go, hold on, let's go back. Let's go inside of samples. And there it is. Okay. Now let's go back inside the data, paste that in yonder. Now open it up. Excuse me. Okay, inside of this folder holds all of our constants for our VB scripts. So in this case, we are using integer as well as let me see, we're using bar character on each one of them. Username is 25, email is 50. So our AD integer and our AD bar character is right here. Our bar characters, you don't even have to use the adobbs.inc file. You can actually just type out the numbers. So let's go back here. That will change our bar character to a 200, and this will be changed to the number 1. So you would put 1 here and 200 here if you did not want to use that file. I prefer to use the file. That is to make sure that you don't accidentally put in a wrong number. And so, but anyway, this helps to, it's better, easier, non-sloppy code. It looks real good and easy to use. Okay, what we're doing here is that we're going to check against our email address. We're going to check against our username. Let's go here, username, and username, and our email against our email. Okay, what we're going to do is that we're going to look and make sure that the username does not exist and the email doesn't exist. And how we do that is right here. If not rs user ID end of file, then end if. Okay, so what we're going to do here is that we're going to go ahead and create some variables. Check email, check username, and that's rs uid. Copy, paste, email, and username. Okay, now what we do here is that we go down here and we check right here with our email. So we want to check else if email equals check email, then response dot write email already exists in our database. Please provide another email address or log in to your account with us. Okay, let's go ahead and break that up there and there. Okay. Else if it checks here, then we do our username, then we do the same thing here for our username. After we check to make sure the username exists, we also want to check username. So username already exists in our database of username. Please provide another, since it already exists, please log into your account with us. Okay. So what we're going to do here is we're going to check our first name, which is like we did before in lesson number 1. Check our first name. If they didn't type in a first name, let them know that they need a first name, last name, email address. We're going to check our email address against the database to see if that email address already exists, and if it does, then we're going to put it here. Please provide another email address or log into the account with us. Then we're going to check to make sure that the email address, we're going to drop it down actually right here. We want to check to make sure that it's real first. Then we check to make sure the email address is real. Then we go down to username, make sure it's provided, check it, copy and paste. Remember, you make sure you change your variables as well, or it's not going to work. Then you take your username and you check your username against the database as well. Make sure that your username already exists in the database of username. Please log into your account with us. And then the password. Okay, now we can also check. People usually will take their username and their password and have it the same. Like for an example, somebody might take create a username of my life, and then have their password my life, okay, or their password my life with a number on it. You don't realize how easy it is to hack that password. So what we can do is that we can check, since we are down here, we want to check our password. So else if password equals username, then response.write. Let me see. Password cannot be the same as username. Okay, now there is also a way to check and see if it's added into it. Let's see. Alright, so we can look and see if the username is actually involved inside of the the password in any way, else if in string L case password, comma, L case username, then password, let me see here, change that to username cannot be contained fully within the password. So let's say, for an example, you have the password of the username of my life. Okay, instead of having try to do my life 5, oh that's 7, or my life aristocrat or whatever, then you would want to do it like, for an example, my let's do life 8. Okay, that way my aristocrat life 8 is a better password, because then that's more information that they have to type, and there's probably somebody out there that's actually using this that is hating me right now. So anyway, this right here will check to make sure that the username is not like that, because if it is, it's too easy to figure out if the username is actually inside the password, and then that's where your profiles get hacked. Just ask the millions of people on MySpace and Facebook that have had their profiles hacked over the years. It is stupid crazy. Why? Because they've got stupid passwords. I've talked to people that actually have their password as their birthday. And guess what? Their birthday is on their profile. So people can look and go, hey, birthday is January the 5th, 1974. They can just go in yonder and type in 1/5/1974. Bingo, they're into the account. I mean, so it's stupid. Make sure that your password is actually written in a good way so that you can protect yourself. So anyway, this is going to do that. So now this else right here is where we're actually going to insert our data into the database. And once again, I'm going to go grab a hold of this so I can reuse it again. And we're going to drop down. We don't need this. Whoops. We don't need this line. Okay, now we want to insert into users values. Okay, we want to insert into the users the let's do it. First name, last name, email, username, password. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Question 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I'm going to use this one. Username, first name, last name. Well, first name, last name, email, username, password. Okay, so first name, last name, email, username, password. So okay, I need to go grab me something to drink, and I'll be right back. Alrighty, I'm back. So what we want to do now is this is our insert statement. So we want to replace all instances of that with ints. We step it up yonder. Let's jump back down here. We get rid of that part because we're not wanting to create a record set. Okay, we're just wanting to execute our insert statement. So what we do here is that what's going on is that whenever we make sure that everything is done properly up here and that the username and the email address does not already exist in our database, Then we go ahead and we process our form. Email, check email, check username. Make sure that it's email and username. Bingo. Okay, now, after we make sure that everything is correct, then we go down here, we insert it into our database, make sure that all of our information, our SQL information is correct. Insert into users, our first name, last name, email, username, password. Each one of the question marks grabs a hold of each one of these variables. Now, since we created our protect SQL, we can now use it to protect everything. So what we do is that we add it to the beginning of all of our request forms. Okay, we add it to the beginning of all of our request.forms. That way, if anybody attempts to submit any type of SQL injections, this is going to stop it. Okay, so we want to grab a hold of this, since this is not going to be used except at one time, and this is only going to be used inside the register. We're going to add it here. Anything that's global that can be used multiple times will be put at the top, all right, without being inside of an if-then statement. So our get sub is going to be used globally. So it's going to be used to check for each one of our submit buttons. Each time the submit button is pressed, our get sub, we also want to protect it as well. Yes, somebody can try to hack your submit button. So anyway, let's go down here, and your form has been processed successfully. Okay, what we want to do here is that I've got a nice little write-up. Okay, we also want to create a record inside of our profile database as well. So our profile table, that is. And this is only going to grab a hold of our user ID, and that's it. It's going to create that table for us and integer, get rid of this, and but we do need, let's grab a hold of just this. Okay. Once our insert statement is originally done for our users, then we're going to go down here, we're going to check the email address or the username. It don't matter whichever one. We're going to select email, username, or email address. We're just going to use, we're going to do our username, and we want to grab a hold of our user ID, and then we also want to go up here and we want to close this, set it to nothing so we can free it, and then we go down here and change get ID. It's actually quicker to replace this, but considering the fact that I am recording this, it's a little aggravating trying to open up that blasted window and replace it. So then we get our user ID and our user ID. Okay, SQL and Pro. Okay, and okay, now this is what's going on. We create our users record for the new user. Once it's created, select we check for the username that was just submitted, and so we grab a hold of that username, and then we look for the user ID that goes with that username. We create a variable for it, which is get UID. Then we go inside of our profile table, and then we insert the user ID into the profile table with the user ID that goes with that username here. Then once that is done, we write this out. Thank you for the break. Your information has been submitted successfully. Break. And then you can add in information here. We're not going to jump into that right now because this is basically all we're going to go on this lesson. So this should all run as long as everything is closed properly. So we're closing this since we opened up. Gotta make sure that everything is done right here. Once that is done, we go here, .close, set it free. Okay. You always want to close your record sets, which this is a record set. Record set here. Okay. And then at the end, you want to close your database connection. Okay. So this closes, close our database, close our record set. Okay, now close and free our record set. Every single time that you create a record set, which is your select statements, using parameters like this, whenever you create a insert or an update statement or delete statement, you do not create a record set. There's codes running around the internet that I hate. I learned how to code using them codes, so I only used it for just a short period of time before I jumped into using actual insert statements. And then about 2 years ago is whenever I started actually using parameters. But whenever you create a select statement, you create a record set. You always close and free your record set. Now you will at times get an error whenever you are closing your record set if it is not closed properly or at the right time, or if it's closed within something and then all of a sudden you try to reuse that record set and it's already been closed, and there's just all sorts of different issues that you run into. Now I do have a website called kb.cffcs.com, and let's bring that up here. We got kb.cffcs.com, which we will be using this in just a moment because we will be getting errors, so I'll just let that load. So let's go ahead and insert our first statement. So we've got our Wayne, Barron, our email address, and then our username, and then okay, it's okay. Provider cannot be found. It may not be properly installed. That's on line 6. So we need to jump over here to line 6 of our ASP. Well, we need to save this. Let's go over here on line 6. Let's see. Did I not do something right? Okay, provider equals Microsoft.jet 4.0. Provider equals Microsoft.jet OLEDB. Jet OLEDB dot. Now, that's saved, and let's run it again. Cannot use, file already in use. Okay. Now, with this error right here, cannot use, file already in use. You can go over here to our knowledge base, type that into the article, and it's not wanting to grab it. Still not wanting it. At least I think I've got that article in there. Let's check it out with the number. Okay. It looks like I might end up having to create an error for that, and I thought that I already had one created. Okay. Alright, we're going to have to create, I'm going to have to create this. Let me go ahead and paste this inside of my notepad that I've got opened up here. That way I can create that. So anyway, what this means is that our access database, which is what we're inserting into, is still open right here. So what you do is that you close it out. Okay, now creating a new database, you should also get another error. Okay, it's still keeping that same error. So what you do is that you close out of the database. Close database. Okay, now once you close it, it sets it free. Then you're able to open it back up again. Enable content. Okay, and now, well, I hate my computer being slow. Now you should be able to click on register. Now, please, password cannot be the same as username. So, let's see here. So if I add in, if I take Cars Kiss and I put a 1 in front of it, then paste it, it should give us an error. Username cannot be contained fully within the password. See, it's contained even though there's a 1 in front of it or a 2 at the end of it. It's still going to give that because it's in there. So what you do is that you break it up and then you just add something in the middle of it. And then, okay, now we've got an insert error for our line 71. And so we go over here, let's see, line 71. Now, since we are dealing with, this is the error that I was telling you about that we was most likely going to get, which is right here on our SQL insert statement. So, what we do, this error is in our database. So we go here, we type in just this error, and we got too many. So let's just type in just this right here, syntax error. Okay, and there we go. Now, this can be on the insert or the update statement. Okay, and this only happens inside of Access. So these are just examples of what your code may look like. You got an insert and then you got an update. So, scenario number 1, rename the column in your Access database from password to my password. Scenario number 2, wrap the password name in your statement with brackets. Now inside of SQL Server, that's the reason why I did not change the password. I left it the same. Because inside of SQL Server, this is not a reserved word. It is inside of Access. So what you do inside of SQL Server, inside of Access, is that you wrap it with your brackets. And so we go back over here to our password right here, and then we wrap it with brackets. And now we should be able to register, and there we go. So now we have this new record inside of here. If we go inside of Access and we create a query on our user and our profile, because it should have created both of them. One other thing that I forgot to do, okay, let's close out of this. One thing that I forgot to do whenever we created the database was create the relationship. Now inside of Access 2000, in this open area right here with no window open, just this open area with your tables over here on the left, you right click and choose relationships. Okay, but inside of, I think 2000 and I'm not sure about 2003. I never used it. 2007 and 2010 are the same. You choose database tools and choose relationships. You choose relationships. You choose however many tables you got in here. In this case, we just got these two. You choose add and you close it. Now you got your user and your profile. Your user ID goes with your user ID of your profile. Click on create. Control S to save it. And then close it out. Now, this is what happens whenever you create your relationship between the two tables inside of Access. You click on Query Designer, Profile and Users, click on Add, and there you go. See there? It's got the relationship. They are joined by the user ID, and your code will look like this. There's an inner join on profile on user ID equals profile on user ID. So you go back into design view. Now what we're wanting to do is we're wanting to see the new record that just got inserted. So we just want to check our user ID and our first name, and then we want to make sure that it also exists for our profile. Okay, so then we run it. And there it goes. Now, also, if you open up your users table, you should have a plus. There you go. That little plus right there is the profile table. Alright, see our PID number 1, it's not going to show our UID table because our UID table is what creates the relationship between our users table and our profile table. So it's only going to show the tables that are not joined. So it's going to show our PID, which is our profile ID, our pro pictures, pro about. So that is it for lesson number 2. And so lesson number 3 will be coming shortly as well. And then I believe lesson number 3 going to wrap it up. We're just going to have to wait and see. I think lesson number 3 is where we actually create our profile table. So yeah, we should have 2 more lessons left. There should be a lesson number 3 and a lesson number 4, and they should be uploaded as well later on today. Y'all rock, man. I hope that y'all enjoy these tutorials. This is Wayne Barron, CFFCS.com, coding source. Here to bring y'all all the best classic ASP tutorials that I possibly can, and trying to give the best explanation, because I've seen some of the people that give these tutorials, if they're too advanced, then they can really make you hate trying to learn these tutorials. So I'm trying to make it as less advanced as possible so that y'all can understand them better, so that y'all can work with them better. So once again, Wayne Barron here. Y'all have a rocking weekend, and hopefully lesson number 3 will be coming today as well. Thank you. Bye-bye.